So welcome everyone to our civil engine beta call. I'm Sam Lytle. I'm the founder of BeyondCAD Incorporated. Obviously, we've created Beyond Typicals, and now we're working on a better 3D visualization tool for transportation and other civil projects. Our goal as a company is to democratize 3D visualization for our industry. The goal is hopefully that the engineers and the planners and the designers are going to be doing their own visualization rather than rely on others. All right, let me just give a brief outline. So I'll do a welcome and kind of talk about the upcoming schedule for civil engine, talk about what's new, specifically what's new between alpha and beta. So this isn't going to be a comprehensive overview of civil engine. That the goal is just to show you, if you've already been using alpha, this is what's changed. Also, what's upcoming, especially before our public launch in May. Talk about your role as a beta tester, and then Beyond CAD Studio, how we're now offering services for those that can't do their own modeling and visualization or just need help. All right, so introductions. I introduced myself. I also want to recognize Brian Sroufe from our team. Many of you know him already. He's managing the Beyond Typical side of things, and so you've probably interacted with him either in onboarding, support, training, any of that stuff. He's also going to be assisting in some role with civil engine, and especially if you need licenses, if you need purchases, invoices, he'll still be handling that. I also have on the call Erin Brown. She is our senior developer on this project. She's our senior developer on Beyond Typicals as well. She really is the reason why our software is as good as it is, and she doesn't often look for praise, and she'll probably just stay muted on this call, but I just did want to give her a shout out and recognition for all that she does, and obviously recognition for you guys being able to support us in this endeavor. We know that the developing software is sometimes sloppy and clunky and slow, and so we appreciate your guys' patience as we do try and develop industry leading or changing software. That not always do you get this kind of opportunity to build something new, and so we appreciate your guys' support in this. I do want to just let you know right now that we don't have a version of beta ready to download today. We are still working on that. We anticipate it will be late in the week next week that you'll have that available for download. The biggest holdup is we've heard from several of you that there's the bug where if you need to save a file bigger than 2 gigabytes, it crashes. It won't let you do that. So we're trying to overcome that. We want to solve that problem early so that we don't have any issues down the road. That's especially an issue if you have a file with terrain images in there. So that's the biggest holdup in why we don't have the beta available today. But we will be communicating a download link to all of you later next week. All right, also, I do anticipate we might release another version of beta probably in 2 months, early April. We'll probably call it something like beta 2 or pre-release. And so look around for that. If you see us posting stuff on LinkedIn, new features that are coming along, sometimes you're like, that's great, but when are we going to get it? We do hope to get some of those out to you before the public launch in May. And that will be on the 15th of May coming up. So with Civil Engine beta, just so you know, it is still free to use. You guys can use it on actual production, actual client work. We have no limitations. The difference is now you're going to need to log in a little bit. I'll tell you what, Brian, maybe you remember what the code is. I think it's just called like Civil Engine Beta or something like that. It removes watermarks. And then, but when we launch the public version in May, then the watermarks will come back on permanently and you'll need to move to the public version. You'll need to purchase a license. And, but theoretically, your .ce files will still work in the new version. You just will have to download the latest version. All right, so let's talk about what's different between alpha and beta. I do want to do some show and tell here. So I'll open my screen. And Brian, since I'm going to be sharing my screen, I might just ask you to call out what those are so that I don't have to keep switching back. Does that work?
Yeah, That sounds good. I was trying to find the code. I can't find it in Slack to unlock it, but we'll get that out when we announce the actual download. Yeah, Sam, I've got your PowerPoint pulled up here.
All right, so the first one is new path presets. I don't remember all of what those are. I think, did we have the flexible fences stuff in, Brian, for alpha?
I don't recall.
All right, either way, we do have the some new types of fence and guardrail and barrier rail. And this is also a good time to point out that we have new interpolation methods for placing it. And this was something that we've gotten feedback from you guys. But for example, if I wanted to place a curved fence like that, that's great because it's flexible, but not all of our fences are flexible. So if we wanted to do something like a chain link fence with the flexible interpolation, it just looks really bad. And so what we have now is, if we go back to our paths, you go to settings, and you can say, I want this to be linear, and then it's going to do like this. And that's going to be much better for scenarios like these rigid fence, or you can see here, and Brian did a demo of this on LinkedIn, but like if we wanted to clean up this striping, now we can go to our striping presets, to our pavement markings, and now that I have the linear selected, we can do linear type pavement markings super easy. So that's new. We do have a couple other options as well, and those are still being worked on. But the goal is just to give you more options. I mean, for example, if you're placing a traffic path and the traffic's not moving smoothly, maybe you'll be able to change what that interpolation is, and then just have more fine-tuned control over the path placement. So you can do it before you place, or you can do it afterwards. If you go to, don't we have it here, Brian, afterwards? No. Let's do a curved one. And then, okay, I guess you do have to do that beforehand. That's something
Yeah, I
that
believe
we'll.
it's a forward setting, forward placement setting.
Okay. All right. But yeah, back to the path presets. I know some of the new ones are things like multi-lane striping. So like a two-way left turn. Let's see if I have a place here. This is the best of places, but you know, now you can do a two-way left turn all in one path as part of that preset. And then you can obviously go and customize that. And like a 4-lane striping, something similar to that. And we will have some more presets before our public launch as well. And
Next
then our
is, sorry.
just one other thing on that.
Yeah.
Our wear paths, they were double, now they're single. It looks much better aesthetically. We're still tweaking that, but that's something that's a default. If you place a traffic path, that wear path is part of there, and then you can remove it later. All right, Brian, what's next?
New materials.
All right, so new materials. Let's go select something from here, from our base model, drop down. So let's do this concrete. So in addition to all the ones that we had before, we now have more concrete types, like concrete worn and cracked. Get my sun turned around. Here we go. Yeah, so we have some different, more organic concrete textures. And we also have some more brick types. I think concrete block wall, some things like that. And then we have some, we've also, I don't know if these were there before, but we've also been editing the stylized material. And I really encourage you guys use these because there's gonna be a lot of scenarios. Maybe they're just buildings, maybe they're things in the distance. But when you use these stylized materials, at least most of them, you can also change the color as well. And so it's just a very versatile thing, especially if anything plastic, anything metal, those stylized materials are going to come in very handy. So, all right, what's next, Brian?
Updated traffic library.
Updated traffic library. So you'll notice this automatically. So you'll see, and this drove me crazy in Civil Engine Alpha, and to be honest, it kind of drives me crazy in Beyond Typicals. A lot of these things are going to be coming to Beyond Typicals very soon after we get this out. But basically, there were just like 8 different vehicle types, and they repeated a lot, and they were kind of distracting. Like there was a box truck, there was like a purple minivan. So now we have closer to 30 different vehicle types just in the default system. And then we have control over all of those. I guess I can pause these so they don't look like a big blur to you. So you still will get some rotating or some like twinning where it's the same thing right next to each other, but that should be limited and we will be adding more. And then you have full control over the traffic library. So if you wanted to do a distribution, if you wanted 100% cars, you could do that. If you want 10% commercial truck, you can do that. And then let me open another project. And again, for those of you that follow me on LinkedIn, you've probably seen some of these things. But in addition to more vehicles, more realistic vehicles, we also added some low poly vehicles. And I think it will work if I just reset this traffic. Try this.
Yeah, we also have that traffic speed multiplier down there in the bottom right too, to quickly populate vehicles into the scene.
Yeah, so these low poly vehicles, there's like 4 different model types. So not as much variation, but honestly, you don't need as much variation. But these are it's a really cool way to just give an aesthetic look, a preliminary look, whatever, to your project. These trucks are floating. I've fixed that already. That will be in the beta version that you guys get. And then with that is some low poly pedestrians, and these are dynamic assets. So if I wanted to, it's probably locked up. So if I wanted to change this to a different asset, I can do that. And then I can change the animation as well. So the low poly is kind of a cool thing. We also have box vehicles. We're not going to show them here. Again, we have some stuff on our website, but basically, if you want just boxes, just shoe boxes shown for all the vehicles, we'll have those. And we'll have those for pedestrians. And as Brian mentioned, we have this slider down here at the bottom where you can go from 0.1 if you really want things to slow down. So let me move to another project. I'm going to be bouncing around a lot of projects to show you these things. So again, if you want to slow things down, you can always pause them by pressing pause. If you want them to be really slow, you can do 0.1 speed. So you can really look at things with your traffic still moving. Or if you want to speed things up really fast, then you do 5x speed or 10x speed, or you can do 50x speed. I'm not going to do it because it starts to break things pretty quickly. Our end of path termination is still buggy where the traffic, they don't leave the path. And so you start getting these queuing builds if you do that for too long. But for the most part, that's really cool. And it's nice here with free flowing traffic, but it's actually, it's going to be working. It's going to be even better when you start using our new intersection controllers, which I can roll into right now. And this is just like a blank model with some paths that I put in. And I put in a few intersection controllers. These are hot off the press, but you can see here, everything seems to be going well. And then we can dial it up to 5x to really just make sure things are working without having to wait forever. So we'll have tutorials on how those intersection controllers work, but basically, if you go to the traffic pad tab, you can add new intersection controllers, and then you assign your paths to those intersection controllers, set the stop bars, and then do that again. You can reset the traffic if it ever starts backing up like that. So play around with them. These are new. There will be bugs, I guarantee it. So some of them I'm aware of, some of them we are not aware of, but we invite you guys to really give those things a look.
Well, do you want
All
to
right.
cover articulation while we're in traffic?
Yes. And Brian's putting up some polls. He'll be doing it throughout. He just did one. Have you used Civil Engine Alpha? So make sure to hop in and let us know if you have used Civil Engine Alpha. All right. So let me go to another project. So articulation is something that didn't work at all in Alpha, and that's something that has been improved. So we can turn on the traffic, speed it up. And I hope when you guys use Civil Engine a lot, this stuff just becomes really familiar. I know when you first use software, navigating is new, might be uncomfortable. These UI things, like this isn't something that you're going to be used to on a daily basis. But as I use Civil Engine a lot, I become much more familiar with like just speeding up traffic, slowing it down, looking at things, resetting traffic if it's not working. But if I can get a truck to show up, I will. I'll show you how articulation is now working. It's still a work in progress. Here comes a truck right here. So it's not perfect yet, but Aaron is working on improving this, and it will just keep getting better. So you can see here that the truck is starting to articulate. In Alpha, we had zero articulation. So that's coming along. The trucks are the priority. The rail, the articulation, it does work a little bit, but we're focusing on getting the truck stuff first because it can be really distracting if that doesn't work correctly.
Sam, Todd Rogers asked a
Mhm.
question. I think it's probably better. I've been answering
Sure.
a couple questions in the chat, but the question, what are your terrain and road data imported from?
Yeah, so the terrain and road data can be imported from just as an FBX or as an OBJ. So this was a SketchUp model, and this doesn't have any aerials on it. But if you do have aerials, they typically need to be put in before they're brought in as an FBX or an OBJ into Civil Engine. There are scenarios where you can assign. Actually, let me go to, I don't know, do we have our HMH team on the call, Brian?
It would take a minute to peruse
Mhm.
through our people here.
All right. Well, these guys, and I'll bug everyone on the call in just a minute to donate some more base models, but they donated this one yesterday or the day before, and I'm doing a tutorial. And part of that, I'm showing how when you import, sometimes the aerials look dark and how you can re-import them as lighter textures. So go to traffic. This is one of the settings we have now is traffic FPS. And this is just really low. That's why it's be tricky. So the way that works, Todd and anyone on the call, is when you import these, it shows up in the hierarchy under base models. And then for these ones, there's like snapshots. That's the name of these aerials. And so I can go to import new and I can find that file, and then I can either import it or re-import it. So it says PNG.
Sam, Todd specifically asked about InfraWorks FBXs. I know you've got an example project with that as well.
Yeah, so InfoWorks FBXs, I believe, so OBJs are going to work better for InfoWorks. Load another project for that. All these projects I'm loading, by the way, they're all available. I'll show you how to access them in a minute. But if you guys want to play around with and look at these things, feel free to download them and play around with them. We want to make this like as transparent and democratized as possible. So this was an InfoWorks model donated by our friends over at VHB. And so you could see the aerials come in dark for some reason. And when you bring in an FBX, they come in light, but they're mirrored. The aerials, they're all messed up. They're like mirrored. So we got to work on that. So we're working on improvements for that. But if you export as OBJ from InfoWorks, it just comes in like this. You don't have to reassign the textures. They all should be coming in. So, and this is a project where I've started to use intersection controllers, but we don't have them all yet.
Yeah, maybe while you're here, I think there's maybe one
Mhm.
more traffic point, and that's merge diverge. That's a work in progress.
Yeah, so merge diverge. And again, you could just see how much better these projects look when they do have the intersection controllers in place, when they are working. That's not always the case. But so merge diverge, I might just do a blank project for that.
Yeah.
But essentially, if you have two paths, let's say that you have two paths next to each other on a freeway, and you want to show some traffic movement between them, like you would in a real scenario. So again, this is a work in progress, and so it doesn't always work.
There's a button at the bottom. Yeah.
But you want to create a path link, and then we want to collect which. Oh wait, I gotta click this path, this node, and then this node. Now I've created that link between them. So this UI's it's actually been really well implemented. But then you can control the speed between those. You can control the start position and the end position. If you want to change that, you can do the ease in distance, which is how hard it's merging over. You can see that truck just merged over. And then the end path position as well. So these are the parameters that are in place. And Brian, did you say we have like a percentage distribution for that?
I don't think we do yet. I think that's still on the roadmap.
All right, so those vehicles drove through each other. So again, we're still working through this, but this is how the path linking will work as well. So between intersection controllers, links, our traffic library distribution, you're getting a lot more control over this system through all of these. And then let me show one other thing that's part of this, and that is the ability. And I don't even think I've shared this on um, LinkedIn yet. But if you do have an intersection controller, so it's going to be super simple. We can add our paths and we can put them on two different phases. Let's just make these like 10 seconds. And then we can set our stop bars. This. So I'm doing this to show that we also have new dynamic assets, including signals. And oh, did I not set those on the different? No, I did. All right. Hopefully that starts working. But if you create if you do a signal head dynamic asset, you're going to see an option in there where you can select which intersection link it's linked to. So we have intersection 1. So now theoretically, there we go, another trick something. We'll lock this so you can see it. All right, so theoretically, when the traffic stops, okay, that was red. Okay, that's not linking. Anyway, feel free to test that out. It works sometimes. We're trying to figure out the bugs of when it works and when it doesn't work. So now it's saying green and the car stopped. So
Did you?
Brian,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
I know
if you
you've done
assign
road
the
testing,
same.
right?
I don't know if you assign the same path to the same phase. I'm
Uh,
not sure.
that's probably what I didn't do. Do I do that here or in the dynamic asset?
Uh,
Oh, go phase. There we go.
there you go.
So it's probably because it's not the right go phase. Other cars are still driving to each other. Yeah, so we'll have some tutorial videos on how this system works. And again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you guys can help us identify those bugs specifically, that goes a long way in making sure we get all those things fixed.
Cool.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, you had other dynamic assets. If there's anything else you want to cover there, otherwise you covered a lot of the traffic stuff already.
Yeah. So let me go to this project. So some of the dynamic assets. Let's do final condition. All right, so we have the construction equipment, which I think were available in the alpha version, but we also have labels now. And if you place a custom label, these are kind of the same as in Beyond Typicals, but you might need to scale them up, and then you can adjust the text on those, and you can adjust the color of the label and the text. So those are really nice, and those can all be phased just like anything else. They'll show up in the hierarchy under assets. I talked about the traffic signals, and then we also have, I don't know, we had a miscellaneous before. We also have an arrow, which can be really nice, drawing attention to different things. You can choose which arrow style you want. You can adjust the color and all of these traffic signals. And then, oh, and then we also have the mast arms. So the mast arms are customizable as well. And this is really glowing and distracting me a bit. So if you have a mast arm over an intersection, this actually comes in pretty big. I probably need to make it smaller, but you can adjust the scale of the arm and choose where it is on the pole, and then the entire height. And then that also can just be scaled all together as well. So that's going to give a lot of flexibility over your traffic signal placement. We have a few different types in there for the mast arms. All right, Brian, what's next?
The pedestrian animations.
Yes, so pedestrian animations, go to a different project, makes more sense. So, another thing, I don't know if I listed it, but we do have a new water texture. It doesn't work very well on imported meshes for some reason, but if you go to library assets and you go to nature, or if you go to other and do water cube, it's going to be really small, so you need to like 100x it, but that gives a much better water texture than what was available in alpha. All right, so we have, and there's something like 50 of you on this call, so it's really cool. We have new animations of our pedestrians using the dynamic assets. So if I want to place a pedestrian, then I go to dynamic and I go to pedestrian. And so now I can place this pedestrian. And we have, and actually in addition to the ones that we've had before, we also have a number of different construction workers, which should be nice. We have a lot more flexibility there. And then with that, we have a bunch of new animations. Now we have over 50 animations. And if you think that that's overkill, thank you. That's our goal. So the goal with all of this is you need to communicate your project, and there's a lot of things that go on to make that happen. So sometimes it's, like a pedestrian scenario where you want to show them texting, but maybe you want to show someone doing a tripod survey. So one of the caveats right now is we don't have the props added. They may or may not be available by beta. They definitely will by our public launch, but so that it's going to look kind of funny with some of these. But like, for example, drone launch, you can see here, he's putting the drone up in the air, and then he's going to be watching it. And then we have drone flying where he's looking at the drone and he's holding a controller or a tablet. So those would be really cool once we get the drone in there that's kind of hovering and the propellers are moving. And that's something that's very common on projects these days. Note taking, for inspection, we're trying to do a lot of stuff. If you're doing inspection of projects, reading blueprints, taking photos, discussing, if you have a group of people together talking about a project, you're going to want to do that. If you're presenting in front of a group of people, we have those animations. Pounding hammers, if you're, doing carpentry. We've really tried to be really thorough with these animations. Waiting at crosswalk, that's something that's really common. We have multiple of those. And then even things like crosswalk guard. and these will come along with the stop sign as well. And then like flaggers. So we'll have flagger signs, flagger animations. And then the other one I wanted to show is wheel measuring. So it'll have a measuring wheel walking along again for, it's inspecting, planning, survey, using a measuring wheel is really common. So those are going to be available for all of our different pedestrian models, and they also work for our low poly models as well. And we do hope to get more of our pedestrians with like safety vests and hard hats over time too, because we know that that's really critical on a lot of these projects. All right, what else, Brian?
Updated thumbnails. I'm not sure if that warrants a conversation.
Yeah, probably not. Hopefully you just
Okay.
see some of the thumbnails look better, except for the label one. That one will be better. But
Yeah.
those look
You've
better.
got the example projects built in a website, but I think you've covered most of that.
Yeah, let me just go through it a little bit more, and there will be more.
Sure.
Like that peanut one that I just showed. We hope to include that as well, and then all these other ones that I've been showing that aren't on this list. What you do down here is you click more example projects, and that's going to take you to this special page on our website. And basically, what's happening is some of these projects become big .ce files, 500 megabytes or more, and so we don't want to build them in as example projects because it's just going to bloat the download size. So our example projects are actually pretty small file sizes, but everything else, our example projects and the other ones, they're all available on this page. And so you can download them by clicking either the image or the title. That will download the file, and then you can open it in your own version of Civil Engine. So like this stadium project, which is just one of the new videos I put on YouTube. It's just a big model because these file sizes were really big. If you want to look at that yourself, just click that. It will download the .ce file. The same with like, this CDI project's really cool. This project is really nice as well, but they're just really big files. So, and then I also have credit to where I got the file and links as necessary. So like I mentioned, HMH engineers donated this peanut project. If you click this, it will go to their website. And similarly, shout out to Ardura for providing this divergent diamond. We give them credit in the title, and if you click it, it's going to go to their website. So that'll just be an ongoing project. We plan on adding a lot of example projects in the software and available on that page as well. All right, what else, Brian?
New wear paths.
Yeah, so I mentioned that briefly, but essentially the wear paths were double in the early version. Now they are single. Right now they're not super performant, and that's something we're working on. So basically there's so many of them that it curves well around corners, but it also slows down your project when you get a lot of them. You can see if you really zoom in, there's just a bunch of little segments. And so that's finding that balance between we want it to curve around corners, but we don't want it to slow down your project. We're still working on that. And we do hope to add more controls to make that stuff easier. If you want to find that balance yourself, and you can always turn those off too. If you just don't like it at all, you can go into that path and just remove slot. You'll still get the traffic without the pass. And actually, this is a good time to show. Also, we have new editor settings. So if you're working and things are just running really slow, then you have some options here. Right now, you have to do them one by one. We might add a slider where you could do these all together. But like, let's say that we can just lower our shadow quality, apply that. Now the shadows are turned off, and you can always go to visibility, show FPS to kind of get a gauge of what's working and what isn't. So turn those back on. Then you're going to see there's going to be probably a little bit of dip in the FPS. So play around with the editor settings and figure out what works for you and what's the right balance of working in the project versus I want to turn everything up because I'm making a render and I want it to look as good as possible. And there's also, and I'm trying to show this on a lot of our tutorial information, but you can also put things into folders and then turn them off. So those are There we go. So that way, like if you have a ton of trees and it's slowing things down, just turn them off, keep working, and then when you're ready to render, just turn them back on. So same thing with traffic. If traffic's slowing things down, then you can shut all those traffic paths off while you're working, and then turn them back on when you need to render. So some of that is stuff that we're improving in the UI, and some of that is just things we're going to teach you so that as you're using this, you know, best practices to work in the project as smoothly as possible. All right, and then another reminder, just those, Brian's putting up those polls, feel free to answer them. And that's going to help us collect data on how you guys are using this tool. All right, what's next?
Just Gantt chart phasing and path follow camera. So basically publisher mode stuff.
Yeah, so publisher mode is super exciting. It's something that we don't have in Beyond Typicals. So, and as a reminder, we do have the basic rendering, which is essentially the same panel as Beyond Typicals. If you just want to make a quick render, you could do this. Even if you want to make an orbit render, you can always double right click on orbit. And then this is similar to the orbit in Beyond Typicals. You can adjust your distance. You could set your video length, and you could render out an image that way. But if you want something, if you need something that's more dynamic, you can go to the publisher, and we have cameras, we have 4D phasing, we have sequencer, we might even have some more options in the future. But if you want to do an image set, then you can set up these cameras, and that's going to hold the pose for all of those different views. And then you can render all those images out together by clicking the render set button, or you can render them one at a time by clicking this button or clicking this button. And then video, you get even more control because you can do thumbnails, and it's going to fly through. It's really slow. It's going to fly through there as fast as you want it to. And we have multiple interpolation options. So right now I'm showing ease, but we also have linear. And so that interpolation just means what's the math it's using to move through that path. And some of those are more smooth. Some of those, they're not as smooth because you want to kind of pause on different parts of the project. Spline is the default. That's usually going to work the best. There was an early bug where it flip around, but I think that's going to be fixed in time for beta. So feel free to play around with those video tools, the render tools, and then we have 4D phasing. And this is where things get really fun. This is more advanced. You're really gonna have to be able to break up your project into pieces potentially. But let's say, let's move this to small. And some of you guys may have seen this demo already, but essentially, again, everything you place in your civil engine scene will go in the hierarchy, and then you can assign it whatever phase you want it to be, whatever phases you want it to show up in. So it takes a little bit of thinking, planning, but once you get that all set up, then you can go to that Gantt chart phasing, and then you can set out what that schedule is. And so now we have, we built a detour. Now we're building the abutment store bridge. And I'm just scrubbing this bar left and right, but you can also push play where it will just autoplay. And you can see here too, these things highlight as they're turned on down here. There's like this glowing circle. We have another developer named Ben that's been working on this, and he's doing a really cool job with this kind of stuff. But like if we wanted this, maybe we want this detour to be shorter, then we can just drag that back, and now it's going to shut off, which is a problem for our project because now our traffic's not getting around. So we can move it back. But hopefully this makes sense. It's a very intuitive way to share a project. It doesn't link to any sort of like Microsoft project or any other Gantt chart system. That might be something we add in the future, but for now you just have to manually do it. It is very intuitive and something that's pretty exciting about what's possible with Civil Engine. One other note on that is the sequencer, when you go here now, it's not going to show anything, but in time for public launch, we will have that. And that's basically video editing built into Civil Engine. So right now you might want to render out a couple different views of your project, and then you'll need to stitch them together in some sort of video editing platform. Once we get the sequencer, you'll be able to set up your cameras, put them all into place in a timeline right there in Civil Engine, and then render that all out together with labels, with phasing, all of those things together. And that's Ben's working on this, and that should be available probably by beta 2 again, which will probably be April timeframe. All right, Brian, are we running out?
Yeah, I think you're on to the beta to 1.0 slide now.
And are there questions that are popping up that I'm skipping over?
I've been answering what I can. Some of them have just been some suggestions that we should talk about internally of whether they're possible or not, or kind of set a priority on them. I think Josh Bears just asked a question about copying video sets to add additional freeze frames. That sounds like something that could be handled with the sequencer, but I'm on top of it.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So
Oh,
where are we going?
you know what?
Go
You know
ahead.
what? You did miss something that John Altschul just asked. Any chance for importing a camera path from an existing video taken via drone? Sam, I don't know if you want to talk about the link to path.
Yeah.
It's probably not an import, but there could be something you can draw into your model.
Yeah. So you can't import one. I know the context of that may have been like we have a drone path and we want to do camera matching, or we want to try and get the same camera path. That's more advanced than where we are with Civil Engine right now. But what we do have is the ability to link a camera to a path. So if I have, let me go through and find which path this is. All right, so this is traffic all, but I'm going to rename this loop so that I can find it. Right now, when you place paths, they're just called traffic all the same, but we do hope to add a feature where it's going to say traffic all and then have a unique identifier the way dynamic assets do. So you can at least see, but you can always rename them. So I have that one called loop here. So now if I go back to turn off my visualizer, just go back to my publisher and go to my cameras. Now for this video, I can link to path, and that is loop. And so now it's linked to that loop path. And so from here, this is really fast, so I'm going to slow it down to 40 seconds. We can also control where it starts and where it ends. And then either while it's paused or in real time, we can adjust all of these offsets so that if you wanted the camera to follow a car, if you want to, we have these presets, which are really cool. So straight aligned low, that's going to be kind of a car view. We have right side perpendicular, angled right low, aerial top down. These are just all presets. So really fun way that's actually really cool. I've never done that before. Really cool way to attach a camera to a path to quickly show whatever movement it is that you're doing. So good call on that. All right, let me jump back to my PowerPoint. We do also hope to keep this within an hour. I'll be here longer if you guys want to keep asking questions, but we want to wrap up most of this before then. All right, so from where we are today to the version 1, which is going to be on May 15th. Obviously, endless cleanup and bug fixes. That's just constant. We're always working on that. A lot of the bugs you encounter, we probably already know about them. I'll show you in a minute how you can check that yourself. Area system. So we have the path system, which is for linear paths. Area system is going to be for an enclosed surface. So you'll be able to, this will be really good for things like grass, trees, and water. And area highlights, if you're showing construction zone, for example. I don't think this is going to be as important as paths as far as the grand scheme of what Civil Engine is doing, but it is going to be kind of the same paradigm. You're going to place it, and then the dialog box is going to show up on the left. You can choose how many assets you want to be in there or any other parameters for your project. So that'll be coming. Additionally, brush placement, which is going to be similar in some senses, like overlap in what areas the area system does, but sometimes you're just going to want to place a bunch of trees. And that's going to be coming. Import texturing improvements. This is huge. This is like, the bottleneck. If you can't get your stuff into Civil Engine, none of this stuff matters. So we know that like we need better options for importing. Sometimes certain FBX files don't come in correctly. We don't know why. Our texturing, right now you have to select from the hierarchy dropdown. We want to do paintbrush and picker tools. Those things are going to be coming. That's what I mean by import texture improvements. Civil Engine Cloud, that's gonna be similar to what we have with Beyond Typicals. We don't know the demand for that because this is a more complex product. So if you have to, every time you want to import your model, you have to upload a 300 megabyte FBX because it's got aerials in there. And if you want to render out a 2 minute long video and it's 2.3 gigabytes, the cloud may not make as much sense for Civil Engine as it does for Beyond Typicals. Either way, we're going to make it available, if for nothing else, so that people can jump in and test the software without having to download it. So the example projects are going to be a really good way to utilize cloud to really get a quick view for those that haven't done Civil Engine, or like maybe you don't want to go through IT approval to download it and test it. You could just go do it in the cloud. So that'll be linked to our trial system. I mentioned the sequencer, which is part of the publisher. There's also, this probably won't be available by launch, but we do have plans to do presenter mode, which is like a minimal UI that you can customize, and then eventually publish to web, where it's kind of in conjunction with the publisher. You take whichever cameras you like and you publish them, it renders them out, and then it puts them on a website. And all you have to do is copy that code and that script, and then like you can embed it into your own website. So publish to web, it's probably going to be a paid add-on in the future. I don't know if it's going to be available this spring, but that's going to come someday. Possibly custom sign creator. That's something that we've heard from some of you. We do have that. It will be in the dynamic assets realm of things. We just have to like kind of build that. And then I'm putting training curriculum here. That's one of my personal goals. I do want to put together a training curriculum, not just my like Sam's working on this and I'm editing it down to 30 minutes, like actual planned, organized training curriculum. My idol is Brian on this stuff, and I'm not going to live up to what he's done with Beyond Typicals, but I do want to put together something really solid so that, because there is more to learn here. All right, Beyond 1.0.
Hey, Sam, can we,
Yep,
I've got a bunch of questions coming in all of a sudden, so
sure.
I'm going
Let's
to
do
give
it.
a couple to you that I think are probably better for you to handle. Um, Let's see. We're getting a question about import, like some more thoughts on the importing camera paths. I mean, importing line work is something we're hearing for things like pavement markings and other elements. So that's something we've considered, but for now it's basically 3D planes, like 3D surfaces are kind of what you can import. So however you can work around that to get things drawn in with Beyond Typicals, whether it's a camera path or pavement markings. Those are kind of the limitations now. Another question from Josh Bears, similar to wear paths, any plans for the hatching that's in Beyond Typicals to highlight turning movements for DDIs and roundabouts? I've answered that already. I forget where we are with the pathway visualizer. I know there's a visualizer you can turn on. It looks like we fixed the bug where if you turn off the other pathway visualizers, you can still leave that one on. But that was a bug, I think, for alpha. If you just select one of those paths, Sam, and oh yeah, that works too. You can
Yeah,
you
let
can
me
apply
try
them to
this.
paths, to traffic paths already there.
Yeah, so the challenge with this is we don't have them differentiated from our path visualizers. So that's something that we need to do, but they are here.
Yeah,
We just,
Sam, can you
sure.
select the path of traffic that's there, like one of those lanes, and then there's the arrows there. That works when you turn the visualizer off.
Okay, so if I edited this and then I turn off the visualizers.
That
Okay,
stays.
cool.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, that's nice. Good to know. Learning
Yeah.
things about my own
I'm
software.
I'm playing with it on the side here. Another question from Sam Worthy. Any intention on integrating cesium tiles for background imagery or 3D models?
Yeah, not in the short term, Sam. Unfortunately, that's just a more complex problem that we don't have the bandwidth to solve. And I mean, getting cesium tiles itself may not be too difficult, but the problem is you're going to need tools to edit those, because if you bring them in, like let's say that your project digs down, it's got some cut areas, then you're going to have to dig those out of your cesium tile too. You're going to need to be able to clip them. So it just becomes more and more complex the more you do that. So unfortunately, right now we are just going to be relying on our customers to get that stuff preferably into SketchUp or InfoWorks, and then import those terrain and buildings and stuff in. That said, I'll talk about this more in a second, but we are starting to offer services where if you need terrain pulled in or edited or all of the above, we can develop a quote and we can do that for you and your project. So there are options, but automatically selecting it on the map and bringing it in isn't going to be part of 1.0.
All right, similar question related to the terrain based modeling. Joaquin asked if how to lighten aerial imagery.
Yeah, so Joaquin, I have a video that's going to be published next week where I show that. But essentially, what I did is I just went in and found those files. Apologize for my messy downloads folder. But I found those files when I exported from SketchUp. And you can do something similar in InfoWorks. InfoWorks tends to be kind of tedious as far as how many different tiles they export. But then I just go to edit, and eventually we hope to have some of these in Civil Engine, but I can just adjust the brightness, exposure, and so on here, like in the photo editing thing in Windows or anywhere else that you want to do it. Photoshop would work. And then you save it, and then you go back and re-import that in Civil Engine. And again, I'll have a video showing how to do that next week.
Cool. And then one more question in the queue from Spencer. Sorry, I missed the first 15 minutes or so. Maybe it was already covered. How ready do you think beta is for taking on a complete streets project? I have in mind a corridor will be starting soon with protected bike lanes, floating bus stops, protected crosswalks. Will beta be able to handle all that, showing cars stopping for people and bikes and all of that? I could almost take this one, Spencer. I'm working on something very similar as an example project. That's my full intention with beta. Now that we have intersection controllers up, you can program in where cars are stopping along a path and at multiple points with separate intersection controllers. Like Sam said, the intersection controllers are hot off the press and might have some bugs already. That's, if we find anything before the official beta launch next week, we will try to address it before the first version of beta is out. But Sam mentioned we're looking at like a second beta 2 before the official launch, and I would hope that any bug fixes there are there. But ultimately with my example project, I intend to have a base model that's just a plain urban street and then phase in protected bikeway elements like floating bump outs and bus stop islands. I could set existing traffic paths onto an existing traffic phase and then phase that out to show proposed traffic. So lanes shifting and pavement markings changing and things like that. That's my full intention. As I understand beta to be, I think you could probably handle everything you need to with beta, provided there's not any major bugs with the traffic controllers. Sam, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, and thanks, Spencer, for the question. The thing I wanted to say on that is like, it definitely is worthy, or it is ready. It's just a matter of how patient you'll need to be at this point. And even in version 1, like it's not going to be completely polished. There'll still be some things that aren't always perfect. So everything, I'm pulling up the website because if you go to our product page on our website, there's some really good stuff here. And I get the benefit of not having project constraints the way that a lot of projects do. But like this was all made using the version that you're seeing today or something even earlier. And I've been surprised at how many people are using alpha for actual client stuff, which, I mean, good on you. Like I said, trucks don't even articulate in alpha. And so there's way more control today. There's control over all of your traffic library. We do have intersection controllers. There will be bugs. Crashes are actually very rare. Let us know if you have them, but that's been something that's been very a pleasant surprise. And then clipping things together later in video editing, which Spencer, I know you and I know you're capable of doing that. That's something we don't have the sequencer for. So yeah, I fully anticipate a lot of people are going to be using Civil Engine beta for production work already. So and with all this stuff, it's like, we're building this because the other workflows aren't working. We hear from all of you guys. We've had dozens of calls, And it's the same thing. It's, we're trying to use InfoWorks, and then we're trying to use Lumion or Twinmotion, or we have to outsource to an internal or an external visualization team. Like, we're trying to make this tool so that you guys can be doing your own visualization without relying on other people, and still have the ability to have things like advanced traffic and passes of pavement markings, all that stuff. So yeah, great question. And just one other, Brian, you mentioned a lot of people are asking about importing line work to be used for striping or camera pass. Like, we've heard that. That is something we do hope to add someday. It's not there right now. Part of the reason is because it's challenging, but another part of the reason is all that you're getting there is efficiencies, efficiencies are nice, but when we have things that are stopping people from doing production at all, like, again, articulating trucks is a really good example. Like, we're going to put the things that are higher priority, which are completely stopping production, versus things that are making things more efficient as far as our priorities go with our limited development team. So that's why a lot of those things drop down. And with a lot of those features, you start getting more problems, because then it's like georeferencing. You bring in the line work and it's not where it should be. And so we got to figure out georeferencing, or it's not in the right style. So it's like those are problems that we know will be beneficial in future versions, but we've got to be ready to not just jump in and add it, but also add it and make it amazing. So, all right. Any other questions, Brian?
We're pretty close to time,
Okay.
so if you can handle this pretty quickly. Andrew Banasek asked, in the publisher, will there be an option to add color correction or ray tracing?
Yeah, in the short term, probably not. But long term, we actually do have something internally we're calling it Project Fastlane, which is where we're going to not just add that, but we're going to add AI filters. And that's not going to be available in this version, maybe not even this year. But down the road, we can see what's happening with AI. And that's part of, goes into this thing. Sorry, I just clicked past it. But basically, we're going to do a lot of AI integrations. There's a lot of efficiencies that we can see on this. All right. Just want to talk about your guys' role. Again, this is still free to use. Please use it. I do want to invite you to review the public roadmap if you do have feedback for us. So if you go to our website, beyondcat.com, there's this drop down. If you go to Civil Engine and go to roadmap, we have a public facing roadmap. We always have. We have for Beyond Typicals. So, like, if you want to see what we're trying to get in with beta, like, this is a very ambitious list, and we're not going to get to all these things. You can see February, areas brush, importing in submesh. If you want to re-import your textures or your meshes, like, that's something that you'll see on here. So anyway, I invite you to look at that if you can before providing feedback. Communicate in Teams and LinkedIn. If you're not already invited to those channels, let us know and we'll add you. Sometimes there's a lot of chatter in there, sometimes there's not. Please feel free to jump in. We do our best to monitor those. Still in need of good base models. I mentioned Ardura, HMH. They provided us with really good base models that we're not only going to be able to use for marketing, but also be included as example projects. If they're small enough to include as example projects, we will link to your website or whatever link you want us to. So let us know if you do have those that we have permission to use. I'll obviously always understand that this may change or break. I do think your CE files should work after our public launch. That's our goal, but there are always the risk that they don't. And then just quickly, I mentioned we are offering services. We already have several clients that we're working with right now. For 6 years, I had a company called Civil FX. We provided 3D visualization services. The goal of this is basically to make it so that more people can use Civil Engine, because not everyone can make these cool models that I'm showing, and you can hire us and we'll build those for you. But some of you may need full visualization services, or you may be in a crunch with time. You can reach out to us. We can get you a quote, and we can do everything from beginning to end, send you the video files, or maybe you just want a base model and then you're going to do the rest in Civil Engine. Either way, reach out and we can develop a quote. And if you think that's even a possibility, I really encourage you to set up a call with us, because we're making hiring decisions right now. We don't know how much of a demand this is going to be. We have, hundreds of organizations that are watching what we're doing. And if a fraction of them want this, then we're going to need to staff up. So let us know beforehand. I know projects, they're not always happening right now, but if you know a project in the future, let us know so that we can be prepared for that. Yeah, so you can go to Beyond Cat Studio to learn more about that, or just go to our website, and there's a studio link on there that's kind of persistent. Sorry, a services link that you can go to on that. All right, I think that's it.
I think the only really last point we should address is how to get beta. Sam, do you have any
Yes.
thoughts there? Yeah, we're still working on some of that.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it'll be coming late next week. We're not sure how it's going to be similar to alpha. You'll download a zip folder and run it on your computer. We don't know if we're going to send you a link where you download it from an email or if we direct you to a web page. But either way, it's going to be the same thing. It's not going to be an update. Like you'll have to re-download the entire software application. Um, Obviously, once we launch the public version, we will be using the Epic Games launcher, and that will have the version updating system. But for now, you just have to re-download everything. So stay tuned. If you're on this call, you're already on our list. We'll be sending a lot of information of how to download beta. And part of why we're thinking through this is because we're trying to track it. Alpha, we have no idea how many people are using it. Beta, we'd like to get a much better idea. And so we want to just kind of set up a system where we know who's downloading it and using it. And yeah.
Yeah, and there will probably be some of our alpha testers are in a Teams channel where we've posted some messages on testing and bugs and updates and things like that. Probably set up something similar, or maybe upgrade our alpha Teams channel to beta and invite more users in there if need be. So keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, are there any other questions that I'm missing?
I don't think so. I took some notes for us to talk about internally. We just got one come in. How do revisions, even minor, in the design work? Do you have to re-import the model and start from scratch? Yeah, that's something that's on our roadmap.
Yeah, so it's not quite that drastic. I mean, if let's say that this is a SketchUp model and I wanted to re-import it, uh, I would just go and I would re-import it. I would delete this one and re-import it, and it should come in the same place. And if it didn't, you can always track where the location is of the other one so that you can just bring it in the exact same thing. The only thing that would change is you have to reassign textures. And depending on how complex your project is, that's going to be easy or that's going to be difficult. But it's really not that crazy. We do hope to add automated re and refreshing eventually. Someday even maybe live re-importing, but for now you just have to re-import it, make sure it's in the same location, and then reassign the textures. Everything else, like I can show you right here. If I turned off this stadium, like everything is where I placed it in Civil Engine. None of that's going to change. It's just going to be the assigning the textures that's going to be kind of the pain.
Cool. I think that's all I've got.
Cool. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will also send out a recording of this video so that if someone on your team missed it, you can forward that to them. Again, my name's Sam Lytle. I really appreciate all of you guys joining us for this, and we'll be in touch on all this stuff.
Thanks, everybody.